I have been one with the 12 pick recently. Don't really know what it is, but I keep ending up there, and I've been drafting a lot. And I mean, a lot. Of just Reishi Worthy at the double with 36 and 37. So I'm going to try to avoid doing that, but I won't lie, the lure is already there. Happy to take Amon-Ra, Brian Thomas at this back-to-back. Chain's fine as well. London's good. I mean, he gets a ton of targets. It's a safe bet. The other really weird thing you can do when you're in the back half of the first is try and set up for like a Philly double. I have to take Puka. That seems like a no-brainer. Question is whether this is tough now. I think it has to be Puka London, right? I would assume that's what I should do rather than getting too fancy. And that probably is what I'm going to do. I'm going to let the later picks be the differentiator rather than getting Puka with someone else. I think it's just Puka London. Let's not overcomplicate things too much. We already have a good 17 stack there. Puka Amon-Ra was tempting because I do really like Amon-Ra, but I feel like the value of just locking up that 17 matchup this early and letting the differentiation, the unique factor for the lineup come with just the rest of our picks is probably the smarter move. Friendly reminder that this is, in fact, a BBM. Would have been really cool to get some value on Adams there. We could potentially build this into a Baltimore Green Bay stack later. We just will. Either way, Lamar is fine because we'll be able to take Zay or one of the tight ends later. So I'm kind of fine with that. Hope he blows up. Kyron is an interesting question. I'm just going to take Worthy. I really like his upside this year. It is kind of weird to take Worthy without a Denver bringback right now. Like, I don't really love Evan Ingram later. Sutton's really the only Denver player I like outside of RJ Harvey, but RJ Harvey's a fairly risky player. It's part of the reason I do like him. That risk comes with a lot of upside. But at the same time, I've been drafting him maybe a bit too much. Either way, though, I think Worthy has a prime opportunity. Kelsey's only getting older. That's not a reason to completely fade him. But I think Worthy showed last year that he can step up a bit. His rookie season wasn't too amazing, but he definitely improved from year one to year two. And with the Rashee Rice suspension, you kind of hope that he further establishes himself a little bit and can maybe steal some more target share. Since I've been drafting Rice so much, this Worthy pick is just kind of like, hey, if the Rice suspension is worse than I think it is, I have some value there. We do stack up well pick-wise and potentially take Mahomes later. With only Worthy, I don't really see myself doing that, especially difficult without a bringback. If something were to happen here if Sutton were to fall, which is never going to happen in your drafts, but I do think whenever you take the KC double, it's worth trying rolling the dice, I guess, to see if your draft gets really weird. But I wouldn't ever count on that happening. These next two picks will be fairly interesting. They're really going to be the ones that are going to determine what angle we go. We definitely want to take Zay Flowers, but the other one will be interesting. Okay, this is a fairly weird spot I'm in right now. I don't really want to take Kamara without having like Ridley to justify it. James Conner is a running back I really like, but in this format, I feel like you need the Cincinnati bring back to be super set up well for it. Rome Odunze is nice. We certainly could take like Ayuk later. That could feel good. But I really think I'm going to do something quite weird here. Jerry Jeudy, the Cleveland Browns were the number one passing attempt offense last year. They're not going to be a very efficient offense, but I think that volume is very valuable. And I think Caleb Johnson also presents some super high ceiling later into the season. I think he's a feature back, and I think this is an angle, especially if anyone is getting Puka at 12 with London. I don't think they're taking these two minor reaches at their back-to-back with these two picks and further setting up for some 17-game stacks. We're really hoping that we can get some Green Bay exposure at the next pick. Somehow one of the Green Bay receivers falls to us. I would definitely prefer for it to be Jaden Reed, but we'll see what ends up happening. A lot of Minnesota at the board, but all of the Detroit is essentially gone. I think Tony Pollard is a fine, just RB2. Buys a little bit of time to decide this next pick. Hawkinson is fine, but we do have some later round tight ends we can target. Not too in love with Mooney. Pittman would be okay. I think we'll go Ayuk because I am fairly interested in some of the later Chicago players that we could work our way into. Important note here, I definitely think that people are starting to become too enamored with Jordan Mason. Aaron Jones is still going to be the pass catching back in this offense, and targets are much, much more valuable than just carries. Total volume to me is the all encompassing thing, especially for running backs. But it is important to remember that in terms of that volume, target share for running backs is what's going to be exponentially more valuable, even all the way in like standard leagues. Given that this is a half point PPR, it is slightly less than the value in a full PPR league, but like it's still valuable. Especially in this mid range, the running backs that are really going to crush ADP are going to be the ones that either just are full set RB1s, get the entire workload out of their backfield, even if they aren't great pass catchers, or the ones that, despite being in some level of a timeshare, are the pass catchers in their backfield. The other one, which is going to be extremely high variance and near impossible to predict, you can certainly take your swings at it, try to buy into some positive offenses, are just like finding the high TD season guys. David Montgomery to me is kind of a anomaly because he's gotten to that TD work in multiple seasons just because of how good the Detroit offense is, but he's essentially like the prototype. A 1B, even 1A, maybe the first season with Swift, but a timeshare running back that just is going to get the goal line work in an extremely efficient offense, that could be Jordan Mason, but Aaron Jones is going to get the better work from a receiving game standpoint, so I really just don't see taking Mason too high above Aaron Jones, especially because while the Minnesota offense has been good, I mean, McCarthy could implode. KOC potentially could start running out of magic. Like, we never know. That change is the constant in the NFL. It's the only constant, so just keep that in mind as you look into those Minnesota running backs. I think at these two picks, we do just have to stack into our main guy, which is Lamar, and then we can work into the Green Bay receivers at our next couple picks. Cooper Kupp is really enticing. Had we taken Hubbard earlier, that would be far and away the pick in my eyes. But I think just going Andrews Bateman here is good. Plays well into our high-value quarterback in Lamar, and just don't overthink it here. Take your stack off your big-time quarterback, especially after missing on Zay Flowers earlier. I think we need to kind of get those receivers for Lamar. Judkins at 128 is a steal. I was going to instant pick him at 132. I think you should be buying into him, especially at 128. If you're drafting this early, you're already taking on some level of high risk this early into training camp. You might as well further increase that risk, increase your ceiling by taking someone like Judkins at this point of the season, in my humble opinion. I do think we just shore up running back here. In terms of what we do for QB2, we'll likely just take Stafford at the next pick. I do like Ramondre. I think he's kind of like a 1B with fairly high upside. The question to me is whether you take Javonte or Ray Davis. Javonte has been a pass-catching back, admittedly, more likely to be the one than Ray Davis, though I do feel like Ray Davis has much more TD upside as the goal line back. Jaden Blue's not going to take that away from Javonte, though, so I'm fairly happy with Javonte. I feel like that helps support our running back room a fair bit. I've been drafting Javonte a lot, to be fair. He's the only running back in this range to me that's like the apparent RB1 right now. Jaden Blue will definitely like spell Javonte here and there, work in, but Javonte is going to be the lead back in what should be a very good offense. He's showcased his pass catching ability out of the backfield, and you kind of hope that year 2 after the devastating injury, he finally feels back to his old self and can maybe find some magic. We've seen running backs find magic in Dallas, like Tony Pollard. not necessarily after injury, but later into their career. So hopefully we can see that with Javante this season. Lining up to have pretty good back-to-back here. Kincaid is certainly enticing, but with no Philly to justify it, I'm not going to do it. I don't think he has a very high target volume upside, personally. Doing the Baltimore tight end double is very interesting, but I don't think it makes too much sense unless you get Andrews on like a heavy discount and can justify taking 3 tight ends. Definitely want to take Stafford here with one of the 2 picks, so we'll do that. And then I do think Rachaad White or Algier is an interesting question. Rachaad White, like I've been saying, is the better pass catcher to me, but Algier does work much better into the 17 stack. So I do think we have to go with Algier, especially with my intention to probably take Tutu Atwell with one of our final picks. So let's go with Algier, though White is very tempting, especially at that price. I think I'm going to go Gesicki over Ertz. While Ertz does stack up, I don't need Ertz to stack up into Javonte Williams. And Cincinnati will be throwing the ball significantly more than Washington. Despite Washington being very good last year, they were 25th in pass attempts. Cincinnati all the way at the top at 2nd. So Gesicki's much more stable, which I kind of need next to Andrews. It also technically, we have 2 guaranteed matchups with those tight ends going against each other. We'll be taking Marshawn Lloyd, and then I'm going to leave the final 2 as a bit of a surprise. We might do something a little bit strange with the final 2 picks, but Marshawn Lloyd is our final running back of the day. With these final 2 picks, I think I'm going to go Wicks and Watson. I think that ups our 17 ceiling a lot higher. Christian Watson, especially if he comes back and somehow earns the role over Golden and breaks off a long TD, that could be something that highly differentiates us and gives us a great boost. Wicks as well is just a little bit of like more exposure into that game. We're going to need Lamar more likely than not. And admittedly, I really do think like Tutu Atwell, having Puka, I like Atwell more when you don't have Puka than when you do have him. We would have needed a lot more ATL stacking, I think, to really justify Atwell. Obviously, having him with Stafford is super nice, but in terms of ceiling, I view Atwell as like a better advance rate. I think he's underrated with how his season-long target share will kind of shape out to be, especially if, you do see a minor injury to Devontae Adams for a short bit. But I simply just think that the likelihood of Wicks or Watson scoring, highly differentiating us in like a Baltimore shootout where Bateman or Andrews end up being the prime beneficiary is something that's going to vastly increase our ceiling a lot more than adding Tutu Atwell to a game of Puka London with an Algier and, Stafford supplement. You may disagree with me. If you do, by all means, share your opinion. I'm always happy to hear it. But that's the end of this draft. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you being along on this journey of a draft a day until the season starts. Hope you have a great one. Draft well. Stay safe. Peace.